so glad that we are back at it. It feels like I have not been back in forever. Took a little hiatus, but now we are back to business, and I've got these nice new decorations here that I am so excited about. You guys, I can't even lie. I've got this nice little mug. It says, "Enjoy life, one national park at a time." I've got these cool greeting cards, which I actually got in a whole pack, and there are a ton in here, and I'm super excited to get to use these in my videos. And can you believe I got that for $1? $1. I feel so excited that I get to have a little bit of extra, like, related decorations. Bonus points because there are parks that we have already gone over. So let's go ahead and get right back to it. And now we are back to where we left off last time. Dry Tortugas, the birder's paradise. Dry Tortugas is one of the most remote national parks in the lower 48 states. Set in the Gulf of Mexico, around 68 miles west of Key West, Florida, the park protects 100 square miles of sea, sand, and coral reefs around 7 tiny islands, known as the Dry Tortugas. Visitors may reach the park only by boat or seaplane and must bring all necessary food, water, and shelter with them. Ponce de Leon sailed through these waters in 1513, and, noting the abundance of sea turtles, named them Las Tortugas. They later became known as the Dry Tortugas, owing to the lack of fresh water. In the 1840s, the United States government chose one of the islands, Garden Key, as the site of a massive fortification, the largest coastal fort in the country, designed to control access to the Gulf of Mexico. Construction of Fort Jefferson was begun in 1846 and continued for 30 years, but was never completed. During the Civil War, it was used as a military prison by the Union Army. Among its most infamous inmates was Samuel Mudd, the doctor who set the broken leg of John Wilkes Booth after the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. The fort was abandoned in 1874, and the island and surrounding area were declared a wildlife refuge in 1908. The fort's brick walls, some of them 8 feet thick and 50 feet high, and the ruins of several buildings may be viewed on a self-guiding tour. Garden Key also offers a small visitor center, a boat pier, and the park's only campground. Beyond Garden Key, the park is a wonderland of warm, azure water, white sandy beaches, and coral reefs brimming with life. Snorkeling, scuba diving, fishing, and bird watching are the main pursuits here. Opportunities abound for even a casual visitor to don a diving mask and snorkel to explore the rainbow world under the waves. Built up over hundreds of thousands of years by tiny calcium-producing polyps, coral reefs attract a stunning variety of sea life. Among the many colorful species, one is likely to see are blue and yellow striped grunts, red or turquoise parrotfish, flat angelfish, trumpetfish, and prowling sharks and barracudas. Staghorn and elk coral reach for the sunlight, sea fans wave gracefully, green turtles and loggerheads paddle lazily through the wave, and schools of brilliant blue tangs dart safely out of reach. Experienced divers may also explore more than a dozen shipwrecks within the boundaries of the park, some dating back to the late 17th century. There is an abundance of wildlife above the surface, too, situated on a main flyway between North and South America. best birdwatching in the eastern United States. Thousands of migratory birds pass through the islands and spend the winter here, resting, feeding, and sometimes nesting before their return flight to the north. It's not uncommon for an observant birder to see 100 species in a single day during the peak of the migration season. Among the dozens of birds that may be sighted are diminutive western sandpipers, double-crested cormorants, masked boobies, peregrine falcons, roseate terns, brown pelicans, soaring frigate birds with 7-foot wingspans, and a wide variety of warblers. One of the most dramatic events in the park occurs in February when 100,000 sooty terns nest on Bush Key. Females lay their eggs on the sand and take turns protecting them with the males. The birds stay in the Tortugas until the young are old enough to migrate on their own. Although Bush Key is closed to visitors during the nesting season, the rookery may be observed from the fort on neighboring Garden Key. Dry Tortugas National Park was established in 1992 and is located in Florida. You can go all year round. The size is 64,700 acres, with a land area of only 39 acres. Terrain is 7 islands, coral reefs, and 100 square miles of the Gulf of Mexico. Highlights include Fort Jefferson and Garden Key. Wildlife includes migratory birds, sea turtles, and saltwater fish. Activities include snorkeling, scuba diving, fishing, bird watching, and camping. And services include a visitor center, boat pier, and a campground. And another national park located in Florida is the Everglades, a wetland wonderland. Wetland wonderland, I suppose. I get so caught up in reading, I actually forget to read. When you see a crocodile surging through the turgid waters of a mangrove swamp, its tapered snout sprouting enormous fangs, and its great knobby back looking like some kind of moving island, fascination almost overcomes your fear. These great reptiles are unchallenged sovereigns in their wetland domain. When a crocodile wants its progress unimpeded by other animals or the few brave people who dare venture into the territory deep within the swamps, it gives the water a loud, angry whack with its tail. The message is clear. Everyone and everything had best scurry for cover. Everglades is the only place in the United States where crocodiles can still be found. Appropriately, the great reptile has become the symbol of Everglades National Park. Like the park, crocodiles are wild, awesome, and ultimately unfathomable. This is one of the world's most complex ecosystems, a seemingly endless swamp of still water, sawgrass, jungle-like hammocks, masses of vegetation that look like islands, mangrove forests, and thick black muck. The park occupies the southern part of the Everglades, a great body of sluggishly moving water that is more than 5,000 square miles in size, and extends from Lake Okeechobee to Big Cypress Swamp to the Gulf of Mexico. Limestone rimming the area acts as a natural barrier against the sea. This is a place so alive with plants and animals that you can almost feel the pulse of nature. In the air, on the ground, and in the water, living wonders abound in the Everglades. The mix of plant and animal life is unique on our planet. This subtropical wilderness contains more than 700 plant and 300 bird species, and it provides a haven for many endangered animals, including the great crocodiles and their smaller cousins, the alligators, along with the egret, bald eagle, Florida panther, and manatee. Here in the swamp, there is much to be learned about the unusual adaptations and delicate balances that support the Everglades' stunning array of life. You might see white egg sacs on a branch that will soon hatch apple snails, the main food of the endangered snail kite, which has a special bill for removing the snails from their shells. Or you might learn about a fish called the gar, which has a primitive lung that allows it to live encased in mud during the dry season. The source of all this life is water, with its cycle of flow and drought. During the wet season, from mid-April to mid-December, the Everglades become a river only inches deep but miles wide. It flows so slowly season, during the winter months, the park's rich pulse of life slows down and awaits the new flow of water. Every kind of life in the park, from plankton to panthers, depends upon this annual rhythm. Even people function on this natural timetable. Park officials schedule most activities during the dry season, since high humidity and clouds of insects, especially mosquitoes, make the wet season extremely disagreeable. Congress created the first national parks, such as Yellowstone and Yosemite, to preserve spectacular and unusual scenery. Established in 1947, Everglades National Park was the first park specifically designated to protect a large and fragile ecosystem that was facing a grave threat from encroaching civilization. Because human activity was interfering with the yearly water cycle, this land was in extreme danger of being destroyed. Water once flowed out of Lake Okeechobee without interference, but the rapid development of southern Florida began to overwhelm the Everglades about a century ago, when large tracts of wetlands were considered potentially rich for agriculture and drained. Since then, canals, levees, and dikes have diverted more and more vital water from the Everglades to supply the needs of agribusiness as well as commercial and residential developments. In 1939, immense fires spread across the Everglades as the result of overdraining. During the 1960s, retaining walls were built on the south shore of Lake Okeechobee, and land has been developed in Big Cypress Swamp. This has disrupted the natural flow of water and poses a serious threat to the park's ecosystem. Today, irrigated farmland comes right up to the park's gates. In the past few years, the number of herons in the park has dramatically declined, and there are just a few Florida panthers left out of a population that once roamed southern Florida at will. Park officials want to purchase privately held wetlands east of the park, hoping that this will give Everglades a greater share of the water it so desperately needs. If its area can be extended, the park will be able to continue to protect this extremely fragile and extremely valuable ecosystem. Despite the fact that this imposing wetland seems to go on forever, with only isolated patches of dry land, there are a number of ways to penetrate and explore the Everglades. In addition to boats and canoes, the park also has a number of nature trails that lead into the heart of this wilderness. Gumbo Limbo Trail is one of the quickest ways to explore the rich terrain of the park. This third of a mile long loop winds through mango trees and ends at the jungle-like hammock, the little raised island of tropical hardwood trees, including several stunning strangler figs, seems to float above a spectacular sea of sawgrass inhabited by flocks of herons and egrets. The hammock's slight elevation above the surrounding water supports a startling array of life, including foxes, raccoons, snakes, deer, and birds. There are also solution holes here. These depressions in the limestone bedrock hold moisture during the dry season and become habitats for many kinds of insects and birds. As these solution holes fill with organic material, such as bird droppings, they become tiny ecosystems and may eventually become hammocks themselves. Everglades National Park was established in 1947 in Florida, and you can go all year round. The size is 1,507,000 acres, and the terrain includes swampy area, hammocks, and sawgrass prairies. Highlights include Gumbo Limbo Trail and Shark Valley. Wildlife includes alligators, foxes, raccoons, deer, birds, fish, Florida panthers, crocodiles, and insects. Activities include ranger-led walks, talks, hikes, and campfire evening programs, tram tours, canoe and houseboat rentals, bicycling, fishing, and backpacking. 2 visitor centers, information station, ranger station, park lodge, and 2 campgrounds are the services available. 600 miles long, the Great Range was a mighty barrier to travel until construction of the oil pipeline and the accompanying Dalton Highway. The vast territory of this national park, the second largest and the farthest north, embraces parts of two very different worlds. The southern slopes of the mountains are covered with scraggly black spruce forests called taiga, which is Russian for land of little sticks. These spunky trees struggle for survival in river valleys at the Earth's northernmost limit for trees. From the northern flanks of the mountains is mile after mile of treeless Arctic tundra. This is a vast region of startling and unexpected contrasts. For 9 months of the year, the Great Arctic Plain is one of the most hostile places on Earth. The wind blows incessantly, and the temperature often drops to 80 degrees below zero Fahrenheit in the perpetual night of an Arctic winter. Then suddenly in mid-June, with the sun above the horizon for 24 hours each day, the tundra comes alive with wildflowers. Almost everywhere, grasses and sedges, along with white reindeer moss, carpet the ground. Dwarf willows grow in jumbles where the land is soggy from the melting snow of the late Arctic spring. Along the Kobuk Valley National Park and the Noatuk National Preserve, Gates of the Arctic preserves much of the habitat of the western Arctic caribou. These large deer, with magnificent antlers, spend their summers on the tundra, where they bear their young. With the coming of winter, the caribou migrate in herds numbering in the thousands to feeding grounds hundreds of miles to the south. Also roaming the severe landscape in search of food are brown bears, wolves, wolverines, and foxes. Exploring Gates of the Arctic. The park takes its name from conservationist Robert Marshall, who visited the area in the early 1930s. Hiking through the valley of the North Fork of the Koyukuk River in June, a month when sunlight keeps the wild land ablaze with bright red light until 2 a.m., Marshall came upon a pair of unusually steep mountains, one on each side of the river. He called the peaks Gates of the Arctic. No sight or sound or smell or feeling even remotely hinted of men or their creations. Marshall would recall later, it seemed as if time had dropped away 1,000,000 years, and we were back in a primordial world. Today, visitors to the park find it as primitive as ever, a place where it is still possible to sit beneath a tree that never before sheltered a human being. Although hiking is a rewarding experience in the alpine regions of the park, rivers that have been followed for centuries by Eskimos and caribou still provide the major travel routes through Gates of the Arctic. 6 designated wild and scenic rivers cascade out of high alpine valleys into forested lowlands, where they become more manageable streams. Alatna River has given many visitors a stunning tour of the park. The river runs gently down from the treeless Arctic Divide in the northwest corner of the park, through lovely tundra to a confluence with the Koyukuk River in a spectacular forested valley. Established in 1980 and located in Alaska, it's recommended to go in the summertime. The size is 8,500,000 acres, and the terrain includes mountains, valleys, and Arctic tundra. Highlight is the Gates of the Arctic, of course. Wildlife includes caribou, brown bears, wolves, wolverines, foxes. I don't know how to pronounce that, but it is Ptarmigans, snowy owls, small mammals, and birds. Activities include hiking, backpacking, canoeing, kayaking, rafting, fishing, hunting with license, mountain climbing, and bird watching, and their services include one lodge. Glacier National Park, sculpted by ice. Glacier National Park presents the Rocky Mountains as you have always imagined them. Granite peaks with glimmering glaciers fitted into their gorges. Fields run riot with wildflowers. Lakes as deep and as blue the summer sky, cascading waterfalls, grizzly bears, wooded slopes, and miles of wilderness trails. The park is the southern section of the Waterton Glacier International Peace Park, which the United States shares with Canada. It is adorned with 200 lakes and drained by 936 miles of rivers and streams. The park is made even more magnificent by two especially graceful ranges of the northern Rockies and dozens of glaciers that seem to flow down every high mountain valley. Glacier's 1,600 square miles, which make it about as large as the state of Delaware, offer the best care-killing scenery on the continent. In the words of pioneer naturalist John Muir, the mountains of Glacier are not especially high when compared with those in other national parks in the Rockies, but dramatic contrasts in elevation give the park its own special grandeur. A stunning example is the abrupt rise from the surface of Lake McDonald at 3,153 feet to the summit of Mount Cleveland at 10,466 feet. Adding to the distinctive beauty of Glacier are the sheer faces and angular contours of its multicolored peaks, their flanks covered by heavy forests. The area's sheltered valleys and bountiful wildlife have lured people here for more than 8,000 years. Ancient tribes tracked buffalo across the plains, fished the mountain lakes, and crossed the high passes. The Blackfeet, whose reservation adjoins the park to the east, controlled the region during the 18th and most of the 19th centuries. Straddling the Continental Divide in northern Montana, Glacier remains an unspoiled yet accessible wilderness. An east-west scenic highway that is one of the most spectacular drives in the United States crosses the park. Called Going to the Sun Road, it provides a highlight tour of the park's major attractions. 10-mile-long McDonald Lake, the park's largest, McDonald Falls, Avalanche Creek, where there is a trailhead for a self-guided nature walk, the precipitous Garden Wall, a section of the Continental Divide created by glaciers on both sides of its ridge, Logan Pass, atop the divide, and the lovely Hanging Garden Walk in Jackson Glacier. This stunning wilderness realm offers more than 700 miles of trails for hiking and horseback riding. If you can find the time, you might want to follow John Muir's advice. Give a month at least to this precious reserve. The time will not be taken from the sum of your life. Instead, it will make you truly immortal. Glacier geology. The remnants of dozens of glaciers still cling to the walls of great rock amphitheaters, which are called cirques, in the mountains of Glacier National Park. At lower elevations, glaciers have carved out the landscape of the park from layers of sedimentary rock, consisting of mudstone, sandstone, and limestone. The park's two chief mountain ranges, the Livingston and the Lewis, form the backbone of Glacier. They began to be thrust up about 60 million years ago. Erosion, in the form of wind, rain, snow, and flash floods, started working on these ranges about 50 million years ago. But the major carving of the mountains started about 3 million years ago with the Pleistocene epoch, during which 4 distant glacial periods occurred. The last of these ice ages took place only 10,000 years ago. The area of the park once contained 90 glacial remnants of this last ice age, but only about 50 remain. 2 of the glaciers, Grinnell and Sperry, are easily accessible to hikers, which is about 300 acres in size. Both are sucked into high, shady, hanging valleys where they continue their work of sculpturing mountains, valleys, and lakes. Plants and animals. Glacier's climate is dominated by cool, wet weather from the Pacific Northwest. The abundance of rainfall makes the forest lush, green, dense, and damp. The park's western slopes, which catch most of the moisture, are more lush than those facing east. The vagaries of evolution and weather combine to produce 4 distinctive life zones within the park: grassland and prairie, the Canadian zone, with massive lodgepole pine forests covering hundreds of square miles, and the Hudsonian zone, a transition area with whitebark pine, alder, and other trees that are able to withstand long winters, and finally, the Arctic alpine zone, with so-called cremoles, or crooked wood, forests of gnarled extensive range of topography supports a remarkable array of plants and wildlife. More than 1,000 plant species provide haven and food for 60 kinds of native animals and some 200 species of birds. Moose are the park's largest mammals. There are also white-tailed and mule deer, as well as elusive herds of elk and a variety of small mammals, such as badgers, rabbits, ground squirrels, pine martens, and coyotes. Mountain lions and rare northern Rocky Mountain gray wolves also have been spotted. Grizzly bears, cousins of the smaller black bear, are the park's most famous residents. Considered endangered, about 600 grizzlies roam the park and neighboring wilderness lands, distinguished by a hump on their shoulders. Grizzlies generally eat grasses, berries, and roots, despite their reputation as aggressive predators. Glacier National Park was established in 1910. Waterton Glacier International Peace Park was established in 1932. It's located between Montana and Alberta, Canada. When to go? You should go. It's open all year, but the winter access is limited. The size is of Glacier 1,013,572 acres. Of Waterton is 73,800 acres. Terrain includes mountains, valleys, glaciers, lakes, forests, and prairie. Highlights are going to the Sun Road and the Garden Wall. Wildlife: black and grizzly bears, moose, elk, deer, badgers, rabbits, squirrels, coyotes, mountain lions, and gray wolves. And activities include ranger-led walks, campfire programs, slideshows, climbing, hiking, horseback riding, boating, fishing, bicycling, nature courses, cross-country skiing, and backpacking. Services include 3 visitor centers, 7 park lodges and motels, and 13